Welcome to Parenting Differently, where we leave behind the old way of parenting and now allow the gifts of motherhood to raise us. Different to perhaps how we were raised, different to how society is telling us we should raise our kids, maybe even different to how we expected we would be raising them. Just different. I'm your host, Anja Simmons. I am a mum of two big people now. And I had no idea coming as a British nanny. I thought I knew it all, and I thought parenting was going to be easy, and I was in for a shock. It certainly wasn't. It turned my whole self upside down. And so, as a yogi, I've incorporated that in my parenting. And yeah, I'm super excited to share with you today the lovely Miranda Fairhall, who I stalked a little bit on Facebook. And I was always so touched and felt so connected to her posts and her vulnerability of sharing her journey as a parent and fully relate to what that opens up inside us. Miranda is a parenting coach and a psychotherapist, and I'm curious how these have kind of come into play in her own motherhood journey. So welcome, Miranda.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Anja. I feel really touched to be here. So,
Awesome. Wonderful,
um,
wonderful.
yes, so to answer your question, it's interesting because it's almost a flip side. I trained as a psychotherapist before I became a parent, but I'd kind
Mhm.
of put it on the back burner. And then in my parenting journey, I actually came to parenting through adoption. So I
Mhm.
took on mothering a child who has trauma and realized that I really needed to get that out and use it really in what I was
Oh.
doing because part of becoming an adoptive parent was that I was choosing to parent in a way that was therapeutic,
Mm.
so it was very beneficial to draw on. Very beneficial.
Wonderful, wonderful. So my first sort of question that I'm asking everybody would be, who are you and who are you mothering?
Hmm.
So you've sort of answered that a little bit, but I'm sure
So
there's
I've
some
said it a
more.
bit, but yes, I am psychotherapist and a parent coach, and I am a wife and mother through adoption to a daughter who's 11 and is
Mm.
a delight. And I am, yeah, I guess that's who I'm mothering. Yeah, and I guess my passion really is helping other parents like me who've struggled and found parenting hard,
Mhm.
but they're carrying trauma.
Right, right.
Mm.
Wow. And well, what sort of beliefs do you think on the motherhood journey that you're sort of uncovering about yourself so that as you from when you first held her, first brought her home, to sort of as you've grown with her?
Mm. Well, I don't know which beliefs you want, the positive beliefs or the limiting
No,
beliefs.
you bring them all on. We need them all.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that it's really woken up is how many limiting beliefs have
Mm.
actually been a part of my life for such a long, long, long time. My journey to motherhood was really quite a bumpy ride because I wasn't so sure that I wanted to be a mum.
Hmm.
Mm, I kind of knew I did, but I wasn't convinced until I met my now partner. And then
Okay.
I was like, yes, 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 I want to be a mum with him. And I came to motherhood late. And 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 now I've forgotten what your question was.
That's all
Um,
right. Beliefs. You're talking about your
yeah,
limited
beliefs.
beliefs.
That's
Yes.
right. Yes. And so when I actually opened the door and met my daughter for the first time, I honestly was there thinking that I was going to be this great mum. I was going to be a therapeutic parent because I had the therapy
Hmm.
background. And I had always had this sense that I was going to be fair and reasonable. I was probably going to be a bit strict, but in a kind, loving sort of a way.
Right.
And and then I met her, and all of that disappeared.
And then
Basically,
the real thing was in front of you.
the real thing was in front of me, and I came to find out that I actually believed that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't
Mm.
really worthy of being a parent, that I have no power, that I mean, my goodness, the things that I've
Yeah.
discovered in terms of my belief system, and really all of that stemmed because I also uncovered that I had very early pre-verbal trauma myself. and it was an
Ah.
abandonment trauma.
Mm.
And it unfortunately set this all up such that, my daughter was then going to hold a mirror up to me on all of these things.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I got sort of chills from that, in that that's so the power of parenting, right? Like the power
Mm-hmm.
of raising somebody or being with somebody when you're, I always think when you're open to it, but I think at some point, like you say, it's that mirror that you have no choice at some point to delve into this and to look into it a little more, right? Like you can only kind of keep squishing it down for so long.
Yeah.
If you, because you see this little person in front of you struggling with that, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's certainly part of it. And I think too, because I had really clear intentions from the beginning that I was absolutely, and I still do, absolutely going to be the parent she needs me to be. So, part of it was I was going to be the best parent I could be, although that I've shifted because I think that's not so healthy actually. But now I'm very much still about wanting to be the parent she needs me to be.
Love that.
And actually what she needs me to be is myself. And when I can be myself, then she can be herself. And I couldn't want anything more for her than to be able to be herself in this world.
Yes. I want to like scream that. That's the parent she needs, right? Rather than all that. And I definitely went through that myself in this idea of the expectations I had for myself, because I'd raised other people's children. So I know children. I just know children. You ask me about children, I know. And then you hold this little one and then they don't quite follow my plan, and questions kept coming up. So saying, well, why am I saying we have to do it this way when it doesn't make sense now? He doesn't want to do it that way. And is it really that important to do it that way? Those kind of things, right?
And so different. There's something about it when they're your own, when they belong, they're part of, well, no, they don't belong necessarily, but they're in.
And they're fully 24 hours a day with you.
Yes.
I love
you don't
that.
own them, but they do belong.
Yes, indeed. So was there, can you think of a pivotal point that made you realize that you needed to change your expectations, or like you say, being the best parent, like you say, end up being a bit unhealthy because you sort of say, okay, what is the best? And the best is for her. So do you think because she came to you around 2, right? So
yes, she was 2.
She was 2. So was there a pivotal point in there that you were like, okay, I need to do this differently?
Yes, definitely. I would say probably it would have been about a year or so in. I mean, I knew lots of things about how I was meant to parent. So I knew I needed to be playful. I knew I needed to be accepting. I knew I needed connection and empathy and all of these things. But at the same time, I was actually completely emotionally swamped and overwhelmed. I hadn't realized that it had woken up the trauma experience that I'd had. So I was having that, and I was perimenopausal at the same time. So that doesn't.
Boof.
So I did have I guess I used to think it was a breakdown. I think Brene Brown always does the same thing, calls about awakening. So it was really an awakening. And what I did was I was Googling a lot.
Thank God for Google.
Why can't I be calm with my daughter? Why she setting me off? Why isn't she doing this? Why isn't she doing that? And yes, it felt so intense. So I suppose the pivotal moment was really the day that I realized that I wasn't going to figure this out myself. And that I really did need help.
Gosh. And as mums, we're bad with that, aren't we? We're a little bad at sort of saying, hang on, and society is telling us we should just know, right? We know, we just give of ourselves, we should just be these martyrs. And then you're like, there's nothing left to give. There's nothing in here left, right?
And it's so shaming. It's so shaming. It's because that's exactly what was happening. The shame was just building and building and building. It was really becoming so toxic because I just kept thinking, oh, I'm meant to, and I chose to be a parent. I chose this really, chose it, so I should be able to figure it all out. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and were there resources open to you at that point? Did you feel that there was?
There were, but what I actually found was that the best help I got was through mainstream resources for me. There were a lot of adoption resources, but mainstream and particularly, I think I started my trail. I think others do this too. With Aha Parenting was my first sort of foray, and reading her stuff. Back then, Janet Lansbury was
Right,
another person, and then I landed on Hand in Hand Parenting, and
right.
that was. I would say that community and that approach pretty much saved me in a way. Yeah,
Oh, amazing.
yeah. No, I actually went on to a course that was meant to go for 10 months and was like a parent course.
Okay.
So learning the tools, they've got 5 listening tools, and I learned the tools. And then as I was actually in the process of that, I realized that this was just too good to be true, and I was noticing the difference it was making back home.
Wow.
And so I continued, because you could stay on in this particular course and
Right.
become an instructor. So,
Ah,
so I trained as an instructor and got my certification with Hand in Hand Parenting.
wow.
And
Fantastic.
it's wonderful because it is trauma informed and it's attachment focused.
Okay.
It's very much
Right.
connection and listening is what it's all about.
So it's kind of it sounds too, it's got that place, like we spoke of before, but this idea that seeing her as she is, right?
Mm.
Which is for me the whole conscious parenting side of things, in which what you were talking about in terms of we're not trying to change her. She gets
Right.
to be her, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
for mine too as well. We had some millions of struggles, and it was that step back a minute and saying, okay, what is this reflective in me? What is it triggering in me? And then give me results. Like, what do I do? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm as a yogi, I would be like, oh, I've done my yoga practice, I meditated, now I'll come down for breakfast. And I swear within a second, I'm like, oh, for God's sake, my kids always say that I said every day was like, every bloody morning, I'm telling you, that's it, this kind of thing. And then you feel bad. You think, what is wrong? Why can't I hold that space for longer? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
it's,
true.
this kindness to ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness to ourselves and being, all right, I don't quite get this. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
what to do. And so I love that you reached out. I wasn't brave enough. And at that point, my millions years ago, my son's 20, about to be 23, and my daughter's 19, was the internet wasn't around. So I really only had the people around me. And, they don't necessarily know either, or I didn't agree with their way of doing things. So that wasn't sort of a support to sort of say, okay, hang on a second. This is really driving me crazy. Something silly, usually is what drives you super crazy, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I agree with the I remember the feeling, and maybe this was in one of your last posts, that you were talking about this everybody needing you and constantly on you. And I had no idea in nannying, because I could check out, it was a job. So I could, at the end of the day, I went home, could do what I had, me, Anja. And in mummying, that meant you don't. I mean, you need to get that, but I didn't. I just thought I was everything for them. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's, yeah.
Yes. No, you don't in mothering unless you are aware. And in some ways, there's something about awareness in that too. So not being aware that you can actually find what your need is and take some action. And yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff in there. But one of the things that was really helpful with Hand in Hand is that they have this one tool called Listening Partnerships, which is actually parent to parent. So, and that it was in that place that I
Right.
came to kind of meet me as someone who didn't need to be quite so shameful. There were other parents who were struggling just as much as I was.
Mm-hmm.
There were other parents who were, doing things that they felt completely ashamed of. And they were changing, things were happening and changing. So that gave me hope as well. It gave me
Right.
hope.
Right. Evolving, right? Rather than just saying this is, and then I know through my own shame and guilt things, how easy it was for me to then blame them. right? To be in a place like, oh, if he was just, if he could just, if it wasn't, you know, and then to be able to have that switch in your brain that you go, whoa, hang on a second. If he just gets to be him, and that's his lessons, and that's his journey, you know, I'm that support place. I'm sort of like, you sort of almost emotional coach, aren't you, for kids, right? You're sort of trying to sort of balance things.
Yes, but it's very true. And that idea of emotional coach, it's great to be an emotional coach, but if you haven't actually got your own emotions figured out, it's pretty tricky.
yeah, and your emotions are not usually sort of at a plateau, right? They are like full on, you know. And I would catch myself shouting and screaming, and then I would see their little eyes and go, what are you doing? That's like, whoa, scary as hell for them as you're in a rage or as you're like just fed up. And normally, well, for me, my being really angry had nothing to do with them, nothing to do with what was going on. It was my own shit and my own, whoa, have we not taken care of ourselves, or what is this showing to me? Or, you know, it's that therapy through parenting, like therapy for myself would be really see, like you say, the mirror, see myself in all that.
Yeah. The hardest part with that too, though, is that is the fact that oftentimes it happens and it's out of your control. Yeah. And you're there before you can do anything about it.
Yes.
Or you're watching yourself as it happens.
Yes.
And,
and,
you know, it's, I hated that.
Yeah, I know. One of the tools I started to use, and I've talked to many parents, would be as your brain clicks in and you notice like an eagle eye vision or whatever, stick your hand over your mouth, like really fast, like even mid-sentence, because we sort of are so set on like, I need to just finish and just stop. And I mean, that's hard to do, but the more you're conscious of it, right, you get to sort of go, okay, and let me, you know, just for a second, let's stop those words coming, reevaluate, and do, right? It's hard.
I think that a thing that's worked really well for me has been a lot to do with really reconnecting with my body. But as you're already a yogi, you probably had a bit of that. But I didn't even realize really I'd been a head walking around with nothing below me. I mean, really, all my life, I pretty much just lived as a little head.
Yeah. Oh my God, I hear you. Yeah. And I didn't get into yoga till, I think my kids are sort of 9, 10. Like that was later on in there. Yeah. But I agree too. I was suddenly like, people say, oh, what about, you know, how do you feel it in your shoulders? And I'm like, feel what? I feel nothing in my shoulders. Do I have them? Yeah.
No, that's been a real game changer. The kind of befriending and reconnecting with my body and meeting it and noticing the sensations and then being able to recognize, oh, that sensation is the one that we'd call anger and that one's the one I'd call sadness, and there's an impulse attached to that, and I can either choose to follow it now, or I could actually choose to do something different, or I can find another way to kind of deal with it, because that's not going to work for me right now. So it's been so helpful.
That's awesome. And I think it sounds like too that then, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not familiar. I've heard of hand parenting, but I'm not that familiar with it. It seems like there's a place where it's got that you matter. Like they're teaching you and opening your eyes to, okay, like you were just talking about, like, what do I need in this? What would work for me right now? And I had no clue about that. I had that choice. I had no clue that that was something as a parent you could sort of go, okay. And not for boundaries and rules and things. I'm not talking that stuff because, but well, I guess a little bit, because in terms of, okay, how strong are you on boundaries? And I'd be kind of quite thinking, right, I'm going to go off for a walk by myself, kids taken care of. And as soon as they go, oh, but I want to come, I would be quick to go, oh, all right then. And because rather than say, no, I really, this is going to be for me, you know.
Recognizing you needed it for yourself.
Yeah, because we know it's very different if you're walking with them to your own self.
No, it's true. I think Hand in Hand took me down that path. I've done some extra things since then to kind of come into the embodiment side, but the Hand in Hand really gave me tools around listening and connection. So knowing to just be still with my daughter instead of, you know, being so busy and always trying to fix everything and you know, or thinking I had to give in, you know, I had to give her what she wanted. I mean, that's always been a difficult one too.
Mm-hmm.
Got to give
Mm-hmm.
her what she wants. If she's going to be herself, then she gets to have whatever she wants. But that's also doesn't fit right. So it's been
Right.
really learning where the balance is between,
Mm.
you know, what's healthy and safe and secure for her.
Right.
Really,
Right.
the part that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the yoga and the body work side for me was really getting in touch with my intuition,
Mhm.
my gut, right? So when you would, like you're saying, like you want to give, oh, you know, do I let her just have things because she wants them and this and inside you're going, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't care
Mm.
if it's the right thing. I'm not comfortable with that. Well, you have to kind of get connected to be able to even come up with those ideas.
That's it, isn't it? You do. And to know whether the I'm not okay with that belongs with her or with yourself. And you're
Yes.
actually protecting
Yes.
yourself because it's too scary to imagine her using a knife, you know, on her
Right.
own. It's like, no, can't do that. But it's got nothing to do with her. Again,
Right.
it's historic.
Mm.
No, it's
Yeah. Now, were there things from your upbringing and probably your partner as well that, not that you have to speak for him, but just in terms of going forward, were there things that from your childhood that you were like, I really, really want to bring into being a parent, like things? And were there things that you were like, not passing that on? Stop. I'm not stopping here. It's a
yeah.
big question. Sorry.
Well, it is a big question, isn't it? It's a big question, but I can answer that question straight away, really.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, I saw you smile. I thought, oh, all right, she got it. It came to mind.
no, I knew from the beginning, and you know, it's so interesting. I became an adoptive parent because I knew from the beginning that I was going to listen to feelings no matter what. You know, it's interesting. I became a psychotherapist as well, but
Yeah.
you know, it's all part of it. That because certainly for me growing up, and it, you know, they didn't know any differently, but
Mm-hmm.
certainly the thing that happened back then for me was that the feelings weren't allowed to have a presence
Mm-hmm.
in the house.
Ah,
And I guess the thing for me too, though, was it wasn't just, it's not quite as simple as that they weren't allowed. The thing was, I'd had a trauma, so I'd been left in hospital for a few, you know, about 4 or 5, I think it was a week actually, that I was without my mum in hospital.
mm-hmm.
It's just the way things were done back then because I'd lost weight, and so I had to stay in and blah blah. But the thing is that because of that experience, I was traumatized, and when I came home, my mum had no idea. First time mum, you
Right.
know, she was young, you know, I think she was 23. And so she was ready for this, you know, experience of a kid who was going to be her delight. And instead she had a little wounded child, but she had no idea about that.
Mm.
And my difficult behaviors, so I was difficult, got labeled as difficult behaviors, when
Me
in fact
too.
what I really needed was someone to listen to me and to hear me saying, you
Mm.
know what, mum, I've just had a really shitty time in hospital. You weren't there. Where were you? I needed you when I needed
Mm-hmm.
you.
And
But
you
she
wouldn't
couldn't
have had
hear it.
even those words either,
No,
right?
exactly. It would have been crying. It would have been fidgeting. It would have been, you know,
Mm-hmm.
not liking. I mean, she used to say I used to hang limp in her arms, and it used to drive her nuts. But I couldn't connect. I
Yeah.
couldn't take the love because I'd felt so abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I vowed that there was no way any child of mine was ever going to feel like her feelings weren't important
Right.
and that I didn't want her.
Right.
But
Right.
that also caused a problem.
On the flip side, but that's still pretty powerful acknowledgement to be able to uh, realize that we would normally in old way of parenting, which is how we were raised for sure, would realize oh, kids are easy. Kids manage things. They know, you know, they can go through stuff. They don't remember things like we remember
Mm,
it. And you realize, like as a baby, you in your cells you remembered feeling that,
mm,
right? And then as a mum, you know, we don't. You're just taking it, saying, well, but everyone else's baby is cuddly, and everyone else's baby is, right? So that's a big one, a really
yeah.
big one. Those are the things that the old way was that you just kids cope. Don't worry about it. Kids are so resilient.
Yes, and pretty much every child's the same. You've just got to,
Yes.
feed them,
Mm.
get them to sleep, get them to change their
Yes.
nappy, all of that thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and feelings would be around those practical things too,
Mm.
perhaps not recognized to be actually messages or information for us that actually a child's having a difficult time, and sometimes they're not needing to be tended to practically. They're actually just
Mm.
needing us to sit with them and to
Yeah.
listen and to stay close, so
Yeah.
that they can actually work through, because there is a truth that they can work through this stuff
Mm-hmm. Yes.
themselves. Like, they know, I mean, you would know that they know, they really know they need to cry, or they need to, clench their
Mm-hmm.
fists, or that's just something they have to do to kind of process the
Yeah.
emotions that are in them.
Like you said,
Yeah,
we can't fix them. There's no like jumping in and fixing,
no,
but
I
there's other ways. Yeah.
wish we could, but
Me too. Even when my kids are big, I go, just listen to mummy. Mummy just knows. I just know what will be perfect for you.
yeah, yes, it's so hard, isn't it? And that whole idea of fixing, fix them, fix ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really where we're coming to is this whole place of acceptance, of accepting them,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
they are, and then learning how we actually live with how we are, or
Yes.
how.
Accepting us too, right? Accepting where we're at. Yeah. And any good stuff that you thought, oh, I really want, to have a,
Oh, yep, I can
like
give
you
you the
said, the playful side I could see would definitely, right?
exact.
Yeah.
Right on it, exactly. We had so much fun as kids, playing, celebrating birthdays, all of the holidays and holiday things. There was a lot of playfulness in my
Yeah.
family, and
Yeah.
that was, it was so enriching, really
Yes.
was so
Yeah.
enriching. Love games, love doing all of those. We have, yeah, so definitely important to
Yeah.
have playfulness and some creativity in there too,
Mm-hmm.
do some creative sort of things together with
Lovely.
in the family. So yeah, all of that's in there too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, we grew up in a house with a lot of laughter. And I
Mm.
think that alone, I don't know, you can't really teach that, right? That's kind of around in an environment like when we meet adults, even now, like some people are just so funny, and
Yeah.
some have no sense of humor. And I think, gosh, you're missing so many things. But that's my own take on it, because to laugh is the way to. Gosh, even my kids are the funniest people I know. Like they have me in stitches, and we all have pretty weird sense of humor. But it helps things. It helps connection,
Mhm.
right? It helps you kind of
Yeah.
enjoy something when you're just about to like pull your hair out.
Yes, I say thank goodness for play. It's something you
Yes.
can pull out at any time to foster
Mm,
connection, for sure.
yes.
We
Yeah.
have some favorite board games, and then and one of the hand in hand tools, there's a couple actually within hand in hand, and one of them special time, which is about, dedicated time that you spend with pure attention on your child, which can be lovely, and you just kind of structure it so it's 10 minutes or it can be 20 minutes. So
Right.
that's the time where there can be some play, but you're letting the child follow the lead.
Yes.
There's this other tool that's called play listening, which is all about finding the laughter, because
Ah.
laughter is such a lovely way to
Oh.
release
And
fear.
a kid laughing makes you laugh, right? It's just
Yes,
so hilarious. Their
yeah,
chuckle, yeah.
yeah. So with this tool, what you're doing is you're playing sort of the lesser person in a way, that you're the bumbly sort of adult who's less powerful. That's the and the child gets to kind of do something that's a bit more powerful, but such that they find it funny. That, and the classic is like with a toddler when they're learning to walk and things, and a grown-up trips over.
Right.
And the
Yes.
child just thinks that's hilarious, because of course they're learning to walk and they're falling over all the time. So
I
there's
love
something
it.
about the healing nature of that. So it's
Yes.
finding laughter without tickles,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it's I mean, I've got a lovely story. When I was walking my daughter to school one day, and she was just absolutely point blank refusing to move any further. That was it. She
Oh,
wasn't going to school.
right.
She didn't really, she found it quite frightening. She found school quite scary. And
Right.
she would have been like 6, and we
Mm-hmm.
were walking along, and it just came to me, there's some paving stones, and all of a sudden I just whispered, and I was like, oh, what's that? What was that? What did you say? And she's like, what's that, mummy? What is it? What is it? And I said, oh my gosh, there's a crocodile. And oh my gosh, they said they're going to catch you. We can't have that, can we? And I'm stomping on
Right.
stomping. And she's like, Mummy, there's one over there. And she's laughing and laughing, and we're stomping and catching crocodiles. And all of a sudden she says, Mummy, don't you think we better get to school? So
she's like, no more play, lady.
well, it actually let the fear bubble out that she had
I
about
love
going
it.
to school, so that we could then, we were connected and we moved on. So it's just
Oh, I love that. I totally love that. That's totally up
Mm.
my alley of way of being, because play is what they know. Kids, play is, or hopefully what they know, and to sort of get in their world, meet them there and get in their world a minute, of this imagination. And then you're like, oh, whew, whatever was in has resided. And yeah, love
Yes.
it. I love it. So this is amazing, Miriam. Thank you so much. So my final question would be, is there something now that you would tell your younger self when you were first becoming a mummy? A piece of advice. What advice would you give yourself that you now know that you maybe didn't know back then?
I would give myself the advice that I don't know how this will sound, but that I'm a priority. Yeah, that I'm a priority, that it's really important that I actually, perhaps less about making my daughter the project, which I think is what happened, is she became the project to get right, and more about, not even about getting me right, but about getting to know myself. Yeah. That would be, I would say to myself, you know what, it's okay to take some time just to get to know yourself, just to find out what's important, and to, bring that into your parenting, because when you do that, you'll actually find that you know actually how to be the parent that you want to be.
Mic drop. Oof. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so very much. That is, like, I think, best piece of advice for, I would have liked that advice. And it's one that I think, we need to make loud and clear to parents. That's the way forward. That's the way to do it differently, right? That's the way to, you're showing your people around you that you matter, that you're important, and that transcends to them thinking, well, I of course matter and I'm important, right? It doesn't have to be a step-by-step, okay, I'm going to do this and then you'll feel. No, I gotta feel it. And then it's around, it's for them to take that on their journey wherever that goes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for being here. And I will, Miriam, I just said that. I don't even know Miriam.
It's an M word.
No, Miranda Fairhall. I want to make it clear who you are. I will have, when this goes live, I will have all your links and how people can reach out to you and find you and get some amazing parent coaching from you in the comments. So we will have that ready for people who are listening or watching to be able to reach to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Anja. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes.